no matter what Bruce Wayne tells himself, and no matter how much of a happy situation he puts himself in, he will always default back to trying to instill justice. Because the truth of the matter is, he's been Batman since he was a kid in Crime Alley. Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the Madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, and my fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft.
Chucky Saul. That's just so fun to say. Something about the name Chucky Saul.
Chucky Saul. I was kind of wondering where you were going to go with that, but then I just realized, yes, the first guy who dies at the hands of the Phantasm.
Wait a minute, you're not the bat. Who
not
are
the
you?
mask of the Phantasm, the Phantasm.
Yeah. I'm the combination of Shredder meets the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Your angel of death awaits. Like, oh, okay. Oh boy, this is gonna be a fun one. This actually is an episode that we have been planning this one for about a year, but just stuff got in the way. And so like it's one of those things where like we got to December, we're like, yeah, we got to talk about this one. I don't know if it's a Christmas movie.
It came out at Christmas time. It's not a Christmas movie, but it just came out around the holiday. Kind of like how Brian and I were discussing before the episode, Nosferatu is coming out on Christmas. Certainly not a Christmas movie, but it came out on Christmas Day. Yeah.
It depends on whether or not you enjoy movies like that around Christmas time. I do. But yes, this week we are diving back into the archives of some of the best Batman movies out there, and we're hitting what I honestly think might be the best one, and that is 1993's Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
It's in the discussion. I don't know how it could not be. But Brian, before we kind of get into the movie, can you kind of break down, like, were you immediately just enthralled with the animated series which this movie is based on?
Yes. 100%. I remember this is how much reverence I have for the animated series, John. I remember that it came out on my birthday. It was either like the day before or the day after my birthday. And I think 1992.
Yep.
Yes. So I remember it was like, oh, my birthday party. And then, Batman, the animated series is going to come on. Like, I think it was like either like the day before or the day after my birthday. And I was just like, holy shit, I can't wait to watch this. And I loved it. And it was one of those like early, like when you get home from school shows that you'd watch. Like there are people in our age group who like obsess over like Power Rangers and that sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, like I had a little bit of that, but for me, it was Batman, the animated series. That was my like, hey, get home and watch that. And then later down the line, it became like Dragon Ball Z and things like that. But yeah, Batman, the animated series, such a great series all around. And it still holds up even after years later.
That's the big thing. That's what I was going to say too. It's like, yeah, I remember tons of things that I enjoyed as a kid that I watched as an adult, and I go, oh no, like you said, like Power Rangers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And every once in a blue moon, I'll throw those on for like that nostalgia kick. You just like that endorphins you get from remembering being a little kid. But it's unwatchable as an adult. But I can watch Batman the animated series anytime as an adult. It's just good television that, yes, they did strew it for the kids, but that doesn't mean that you can't respect it as an adult. And I have no shame. Like if somebody came in and was, I was watching a 1989 episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I feel like I was caught watching porn. I'd be like, no, try to turn it off real quick. But if somebody came in,
green jizz shitting everywhere. Is that
it? But
that's not ooze.
I just be embarrassed. I'd be like, no, I'm not watching this show. But if somebody came in and I was watching Batman the animated series, I'd be like, yeah, you should watch this one. It's good. It's the
You'd
guy.
Be like, yes, I'm drinking a cognac. Yeah. As I'm watching my Batman.
It's almost got him. It's one of the best episodes.
Oh, that seriously is one of the best episodes. But no, I it's funny you bring up about older TV shows and cartoons that just don't hold up, even though like at the time we thought they were great. It must have been at least a year ago. I tried watching Tales from the Crypt, the animated series. And I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast at the time, but I had to turn it off after about 5 minutes. And it was a thing where like, I remember back in the day that I loved that show, but it doesn't hold up at all. The animation doesn't, the story doesn't, the acting doesn't, none of it. It's just bad.
Yeah.
But Batman the Animated Series, I think because it was designed for grown-ups first and then pared back, that's why it works. You know, you look at every single one of those episodes and they're dealing with things like grief. They're dealing with things like, going out for revenge and what the meaning of vengeance is. Like one of my favorite two-parters is the origin of Two-Face. That two-parter is so good because you're dealing with things not only going on with Harvey and his mental illness, but you're also dealing with things going on with Bruce and his own grief, like reliving grief of his parents dying because he couldn't save Harvey. And it's touching on topics that no other animated show ever touched on.
And it's kind of more than just a little embarrassing that when we get the two-parter of Two-Face is 1,000 times better for a show intended for children, is 1,000 times better than when they make their mainstream blockbuster Batman Forever film. And it is laughably bad compared to a show meant for kids. And then 2 years later, we get a laughably bad version of Mr. Freeze, when I think that they won Daytime Children's Emmys for the representation of Mr. Freeze on the animated series. When the cartoon for little kids is making you look like schmucks, that's where you should be goddamn embarrassed.
Yeah, I honestly think that we have yet to ever see a solid representation in live action of both Two-Face and Mr. Freeze. That's not to say anything against Aaron Eckhart in The Dark Knight. I think that was a very good representation of Harvey Dent and him becoming Two-Face. But, the whole paradigm of Two-Face dealing with, anger issues and having that bottled up and trying to put on this mask of civility over and over again, but then dealing with these mental health issues at the same time, and then having a horrible accident that was taken advantage of those mental health issues, and then it becoming kind of out in the open, that is a lot deeper than this guy likes to use a double-sided coin and he gets blown up because of the Joker, and that's why he's now two sides about everything. I've yet to see a solid representation. And then Mr. Freeze alone, like, you want to talk about a villain that is the least villainy out of all of them, at least villainous out of all of them. And like, you actually look at him and you go like, I understand why he's doing what he's doing. Victor Freeze is that. And instead we get, Freeze well, instead of that. But yeah, we've yet to see it. And I hope that Matt Reeves is considering both of those characters in The Batman Part 2. Did you go and see Mask of the Phantasm when it came out in theaters? Or were you like me and you forgot this thing even came out because Warner Brothers botched it in terms of marketing and discovered it later?
I'm very much like you. Yeah, I saw it after the fact because I could blame just Warner Brothers on this one, but I think a lot of when I was a little kid, I was oblivious to a lot of stuff unless I was told, John, there's a new RoboCop movie. Oh, there is. Or I remember seeing a trailer for Batman Returns and I kept seeing the same trailer and getting very excited for it. And then I saw a different trailer that showed different scenes. And I remember running to my sister and goes, oh no, there's a new Batman movie out and we missed Batman Returns because I just saw a trailer for a new Batman movie, and my sister, bless her heart, knowing her brother's a idiot, was like, I think it might just been a different trailer, John. That they wouldn't have made a new movie 4 days after the last one came out. So, I was oblivious to a lot of things going on. So I probably even missed all the marketing for this movie and just didn't even know it existed until I went to the video rental store and saw it on the shelf.
See, I remember it being marketed, but it was never marketed to the level of extreme that you saw with, any of the Batman live action movies. Like and honestly, it was never really even marketed as much as the TV show. It just was like, yeah, there's going to be a new Batman movie and it's animated, and yeah, hey, there it is. And I mean, I looked a little bit into this, and it turns out that originally this was supposed to be a direct-to-video movie. It was not supposed to be in theaters. And then I'm assuming because of the fact that, this, the series itself blew up in popularity, that they decided, hey, we might be able to make some more money off of this if we put it into theaters. But the problem is that they basically forced production to do it in under a year,
which is
asinine.
Fucking ridiculous. Yeah.
Asinine. Can you imagine? Like, this is before CG. Okay, nothing in this movie is CG. Like, you can look at Batman Sub-Zero, which came out a couple years later, and that has clear CG elements. This is all still hand-drawn animation. This is cell animation here. But being given less than a year to make the thing and then get it out, like, that's less than a year to not only make it, but less than a year to market it. Like, I can only imagine it.
Yeah, and it looks great too.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not suffering at all from that. But like, I if I was anyone on the production, I would have like pulled my hair out, and I don't have any hair.
You pulled the beard hair out. Yeah,
I pull the beard hair out.
But
just have patches all over the place.
For those who like don't understand how complex editing can be in general, but especially animation and editing is, I guess the best way to describe it is, imagine if you were told, whether you're an architect or not, just imagine you were told to build the Empire State Building, but you were given 5 days and it has to be up 100% working, electricity, furnished, top to bottom. You have 5 days to make the Empire State Building. That's a comparison I can give to how short of a window these people were given to make this film.
Well, not only that, John, like, you actually, you went to school at a place that they specialized in animation, right? So like, you knew people who this is what they did, right?
Oh yeah. Back when I was younger, I didn't need as much sleep. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. But instead of like, if I was done with my stuff going home, I would just roll my chair over in the editing lab to one of the animators, and I would take the easy color fill. They'd be like, okay, it's just this color teal, and I just want you to put this part of the sweater in frame by frame. And I would just go, if you tapped it, it would fill in the color. I'd go next frame, do it. And I would do that for maybe 3 hours. And I helped them put together 30 seconds of that one particular area, so.
Yeah, the animation that I do is digital animation. It's, keyframes, but not frame by frame. Although it's funny, this is a sidebar, but it does relate. So I teach an animation course, and we recently just did rotoscoping, and we were rotoscoping lightsabers for like an animation exercise. And I told them, I said, listen, you're either going to love this or you're going to hate this, because on one side of it, you don't have to think too hard. It's more like you put on some music, you go page up, page down, adjust the mask, do it again, and it's kind of Zen-like. And that's the words that other students I've had. I've also had some students that have said, like, Professor Coddington, this is fucking crazy. So it's like, pick your option there.
Look, I mean, I'm an okay artist when it comes to like drawing, right? I'm fine. There's a reason I was able to survive in a undergrad program where I had to take drawing, pottery, painting, etc. I did okay, but I have no desire ever to be an animator. I'm like, give me a camera, give me a couple of lights and human beings, and I'll shoot 24 frames per second. You have to love animation to do it, because all I could think was all these talented animators that I knew in undergrad. I'm like, this is the most tedious fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. But it's their passion, it's their drive. And unless you have that, you're going to be like, this is so monotonous sometimes, but it's about the finished product.
100%. I mean, there really is. And I speak from experience that there is a moment of like giddy pride as soon as you're done. You know, I don't do frame by frame, but I do, digital animation and visual effects. And those things are also extremely tedious. But, once I'm done with it and I see it in action, then I have the sound effects to go along with it. It's like, yeah, maybe this was a 2-hour long ordeal that only resulted in maybe 10 seconds of something. But like, it makes you feel good once you see the finished product. You're like, wow, that looks really cool. And then when you see other people's reaction to it, you're like, yeah, that's why you do the things you do. But getting back to Batman Mask of the Phantasm, I said at the top of the show that I think this movie really is like the best Batman movie ever. And when I say that, I want to be careful about this, okay? I'm not saying that other Batman movies aren't good, okay? I don't want people to think that, except for like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. I really don't like those. I don't care that there's a revival now of Batman Forever. I don't care. I still don't like it. Check our back catalog. We covered that one. But I'm going to go solo on this one. This is important. I think that one of the problems that just about every Batman movie has had, with the exception of this one, is that they've been Batman movies, but they've never actually focused on Batman himself. And you could point to, say, The Batman with Robert Pattinson and say
Batman Begins.
What was that?
Batman Begins.
Yeah. Batman Begins does for about half of the movie.
Fair.
That's my half of the movie. Yes, you're right, John. Batman Begins does. And honestly, the Nolan movies, not so much with The Dark Knight Rises. But the first two, yes, they totally do have more focus on Bruce Wayne and Batman as a whole. But in terms of like a movie that from start to finish, Batman's the main character and we spend more of our time with him and we see his struggles, I don't know any other movie that's done that other than Mask of the Phantasm. I mean, in this one, we are literally seeing why Batman is Batman, why Bruce Wayne went down that path. And we're presented with the argument of, did he have to?
The tragedy.
Was he fated? Was he fated to do it? Was he fated to become this person? And I'm going to argue, and I'm curious, John, your thoughts on this, that he was. He did not have a choice.
I think he always had a choice, because for all of its faults, I love it, but I understand some people are going to be like, I hate this movie, or it's incredibly flawed. Batman Returns, which came out 1 year before this, is Batman trying to make a choice. Bruce Wayne, however you want to describe it, when he told Selena Kyle, like, fuck it, let's stop it. Gotham's never going to be better. Let's just be together. And it goes belly up. I do think that he always has a choice, but I don't think that, narratively speaking, because obviously this isn't real, these are movies, that he feels that he has an opportunity to go another route, especially when, and I know that this is about a guy who dresses like a bat and punches a clown in the face, that I shouldn't think this hard about it. But if Bruce Wayne just kind of used his money in order to help the lower income and disproportionately,
he even makes that argument, John.
Yeah.
That's why I say, like, that's why I love this movie, is he makes the argument that just about every person says, why doesn't Batman just spend his billions of dollars and, you know, solve crime that way? He makes that argument and it doesn't matter.
But if he helped those areas, maybe the people that turn into criminals and then Batman gives them brain damage, maybe he wouldn't have had to have given them brain damage in the first place.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. Here's why I say that no matter what, that Bruce Wayne is fated to become Batman, is that I truly believe that Bruce Wayne died the day his parents were killed. That the person after, like, I think 3 people died in Crime Alley. They just, one of them wasn't shot. Okay. But Bruce Wayne died. That person, that timeline where he may have gotten married, may have had kids, may have been happy. I think that died when his parents died. And that Batman actually is the like, that's the real him. Okay. And that person that he puts on, that persona of billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne, and even when he's like not necessarily out in public saying that he's Bruce Wayne, like, and when I mean like that, I mean like acting like, oh, all crazy and you know, with women all over the place. What I mean by that is, like, he is still putting on a mask in public, but the real him has always been Batman. And like, the best scene that illustrates this to me is right after he gets out of, this is a flashback scene. So it's right after him and Andrea Beaumont are leaving her father's office, and he sees that group of muggers who are like trying to steal a cash box from someone just out in the street. Now, this is after, you know, they had been dating for a little bit. He's got a little bit of a relationship. He's getting a taste of what life outside of vengeance could be. But what does he do? He immediately reacts. So why I say he's fated is that no matter what Bruce Wayne tells himself, and no matter how much of a happy situation he puts himself in, he will always default back to trying to instill justice physically, because the truth of the matter is he's been Batman since he was a kid in Crime Alley.
Sounds like an unspeakable tragedy.
It is a tragedy, and being Batman is not a great thing. Even though, John, you and I all we wanted to be Batman.
Well, if I was like a genius and the world's greatest detective and a kung fu master and had billions of dollars and all the cool gadgets, like,
but to be Batman, John, you'd have to have your parents die.
Well, I have a butler who will clean my prostate out. You know what I mean? Like,
okay,
is it time for the trainings, Alfred? It's not going to eat itself, but
I did find it funny that every single time, but Alfred popped in when Bruce and Andrea were like going at it. He's like, "Oh, I've got to turn the other way now."
Alfred likes to watch.
Oh yes, Alfred absolutely was watching. Good show, Master Wayne.
That's the same thrust as Master Thomas. But we lost the audience again.
We lost the audience again, John.
Let's just give, like, for some people who are just maybe watched the show and didn't watch the movie, or just tune in because they like us, just as brief of a background, because we're mentioning, you know, Adrian Beaumont and everything, is that there is a new baddie in Gotham City who's knocking off mobsters, who is known as the Phantasm, or else you wouldn't know that unless it said
that's not the tall man Phantasm, not the tall man Phantasm.
No, not that one. But yeah, that's the new baddie in town. knocking off mobsters, and then a lady from Batman's past. Gee, I wonder if she could be the Phantasm. This is like Dick Tracy all over again. Um, Shows up in town, and we get a bunch of flashbacks of how Batman became Batman, and we go between how Batman became Batman, his struggles of trying to find love, but also be the Dark Knight in a world now that's also modern day of dealing with the Phantasm knocking off mobsters. That's as quickly as I could describe the movie.
Yeah, it's not a crazy like complicated plot.
It's
And
more
I'm
about the
actually-
characters.
I'm actually glad that it isn't. Because, I really think that one of the problems that a lot of the Batman movies have struggled with is they make everything way too complicated in terms of the plot. And they make it less about the characters, right? But yeah, one of the things you didn't mention is that Batman is also being framed for the mob killings. Not on purpose, like the Phantasm isn't trying to frame him, but it's just a thing that the police, the city councilmen are all saying that Batman has like lost his mind and is suddenly killing off people. So it's now making almost a pressure cooker type atmosphere for Batman to even go out at night, because now the police are hunting him down too.
Yeah.
And it has one of the best scenes of this, which I forgot completely about this, where the police have him cornered.
Oh, and then Miss Beaumont swings by in a car.
Well, I mean, not only that, like he is about, I'd say, a hair away from being discovered and or killed. Like he's actually had to take off his mask. The police, who in the series have always been incompetent, like they are all like, every time Harvey Bullock comes on screen in the series, I'm like, okay, what fucking thing is he going to screw up? But actually in this one, like he's the one who's leading the charge on Batman as he's kind of in the construction area. And he's beaten up, he's blown up, he's tattered, he's bleeding, and he's had to take off his cowl and try to trick them. And yeah, he's about a hair's away from either being killed or discovered. And yeah, Andrea Beaumont kind of saves his ass.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Now let's talk a little bit about these characters, John, because you said that this movie is more character driven. The three that I really see are kind of the main focus of this is one, Batman, and we talked a little bit about kind of his backstory. But Andrea Beaumont is an interesting character. Do you want to give a little bit insight on kind of her, personality?
Well, what I love about the Adrian Beaumont character is that, and again, I hope you've seen this movie, but is that she has had to deal with the loss of family in the same way Bruce has had to deal with loss of family, but they end up going down different roads, where it kind of reminds me of if our listeners, dear listeners, if you've seen Dexter, how he has to deal with his brother who went the complete serial killer route as compared to Dexter, who went, well, I'm only going to kill people who deserve to die anyways. So we have Batman, who doesn't kill and is trying to clean up the streets and do right, where please excuse the pun, Adrian Beaumont's just out for vengeance, and so you get that dichotomy of these two people who have suffered the same pain but have gone down different roads.
Yeah, I kind of see parallels between Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman and Andrea Beaumont to some degree. Obviously, I think they did a better job of making that duality, and that, that they're two sides of the same coin of dealing with grief. Like Batman channeled his grief into, I'm going to make sure that this never happens to anyone else ever again. And I'm going to get justice. That's what Batman did. That's what he said he wanted to do. And Andrea Beaumont, on the other hand, is, I'm going to make those people pay with their lives. It's not necessarily about justice. It's not necessarily about cleaning up Gotham and making it so that what happened to her never happens to anyone else again. It's about, this is revenge for me. And that's where they split. And I think it's interesting how those two, methodologies kind of clash.
And then in the end, neither are particularly happy. Because I don't think that like the ending of Batman choosing to be Batman, especially when the one keepsake that he has from her after he thought he lost her completely, is that, oh no, I've chosen the right life to be Batman. I've chosen the life, good, bad, or indifferent, but now I have to accept it.
Yeah. Yeah, he has to accept that he is Batman, which is interesting. Now, did you think it was kind of a cop-out that they didn't kill her? Did you think it was a cop-out?
Of course it was, but we're talking about marketing, baby. We got to bring her back for comic books or animated series or action figures, which, can I just say right now, shame on the action figure people, because I found this out. They released the action figure of the Phantasm with removable mask before the movie
son
came
of a
out.
bitch.
Yeah, and
son of a bitch.
If you had the toy and you took the mask off, it's her before you even saw the movie.
And they wonder why this movie did not do very well at the box office.
Yeah.
The one character I did want to bring up, and it's one that you could argue is not nearly as important and doesn't have nearly as much of an arc, is the Joker in this. When I originally saw this, I'm like, why is the Joker even in this? Why do we need him there?
What, you mean the shoehorned? I thought that
I don't see it as shoehorned. I don't think it's shoehorned in, and I'm going to tell you why I don't think it's shoehorned in. One, we've always wondered, what was the Joker like before he was the Joker? And this movie also gives us that glimpse too.
But isn't it best to not know anything about the Joker?
I mean, this is also at a time when the Joker was considered Jack Napier fell into acid. So this is still
the animated series even has a file that Batman's looking at, and it has aliases Jack Napier on it. So
I mean, this is at a time when I don't think the idea of the Joker is not supposed to have a backstory was as important as it is, now. So, I think it's fine that he's in there, but it's also a thing that, like, the Joker is the reason that Andrea Beaumont decides to go on a murderous, like, kill spree on the mob, because the Joker killed her father. Like, we see that, like, that's what happens. So, like, those three characters are important, even though you could say, like, the Joker why is he just shoehorned in right at the end? One, you could say because it's the fucking Joker, and it's Mark Hamill, and it's also like classic design Joker. Like, I hated it when they, in the next, I think it was in season 2 or 3, when they made was it 3?
Yeah, sorry, it became Wish.com.
Yeah, I hated that. I hated that. But, like, I think it made sense why they put him in there from a marketing standpoint, and also from hey, there's no other villain that's going to have that connection to him. If we had some, unnamed mobster number 5,
Well, the studio insisted, actually.
Yeah.
In the original version of the script. Now, granted, ladies and germs of Psycho's Nation, like, scripts go through anywhere from 2 to like 25 passes, depends on the movie. But in the original version of it, which is deemed to be changed anyways, there was no Joker, and the studio went, well, everybody knows the Joker, he's the most famous villain, can you throw him in the movie for so something is recognizable, to hedge our bets? And so they found a way to write him in to the plot. And I think fairly well they did, but he is, like, just kind of brought in by studio pressure.
Yeah, and you can tell that he is less fleshed out than, Bruce and Andrea Beaumont. So, I mean, it's understandable why that happened. And he also shows up, I'd say, about 2/3 into the movie. So it's not like he's a constant presence. But when you get to kind of the flashbacks and you see that really The Joker was the one who did the physical killing because he worked for the one main mob boss in the film. That that kind of is where those three paths kind of cross. But I do find it funny that the Joker, for all of his bluster and his like commitment to trying to one up the Batman and hit everything with like comedy, is also the first one in a jetpack trying to escape, and Batman's like, I don't fucking care. We're both gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. He's like, are you mad? We're gonna die. And Batman's just like, whatever it takes. This is a man who's just realized that his girlfriend, that he's gonna lose his girlfriend again, and he gives no fucks.
Yeah. We're going down together, bitch.
Yeah. And I love that, because it's a moment where the Joker like is legitimately terrified of Batman, and because he knows that Batman is held back by the idea that he is not going to commit vengeance, and what happens if he's got nothing left to lose.
And unfortunately, Joker's robot wife that he's clearly fucking is gonna die.
Okay, I think the robot wife shit is stupid. I'll give that. When they get to the world of tomorrow, and you've got the robot wife that he's pulling off pieces of foam off of, and you're just like, Joker, you can find someone human. You don't need to fuck the robot.
Well, speaking of that, there are two characters who are quite absent from this movie, and it was for narrative simplicity, and that is Robin and Harley Quinn.
I'm glad there was no Robin in this.
Yeah.
Robin is a character that I've never liked. I understand why he's there, but I've never liked that character. And when you look historically, you realize that they put that character in there, one, to appeal to children. Okay. And two, because of the comics code.
Yeah.
To make him less scary.
He's less scary, and he might come off like a homosexual. So the best thing you can do is give him a impressionable young boy to live in his mansion with him on a nightly basis. That'll make him seem more fatherly. Yes.
Well, yes, we'll call him his ward. Call him his ward.
Yes. And he won't, when he fights crime, he won't wear any pants. He'll be in tight little panties. Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's something to that. But I just, in terms of a character, I never really liked Robin. I've never really cared for him. I'm just like, it defeats the purpose of Batman, who is meant to be alone. Like, I'm sorry, that's the best version of Batman. I don't mean like it's horrible for Bruce Wayne, but it's the most truest form of who Bruce Wayne is. And it's unrealistic to say like, well, he's taking care of, his Bat Boy and his other kid that he has with Talia al Ghul, and oh yeah, he's got the whole Bat family. And I'm just like, that kind of defeats the point of Batman, doesn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, people are going to argue with me, and I can already feel the hatred of some Bat fans in the audience. And I'm sorry, this is my take on it, but I really like the idea of a Batman who is struggling with his personality. And if you give him a partner that gives him less time to struggle with that personality.
And it's the difference between a standalone movie, a short-lived animated series, as compared to thousands upon thousands of comic books. Like, if there's one every week or every 2 weeks or however often Batman comics come out, like, you're gonna have to go, well, we've done everything. What if we give him a a psychic, and then that psychic got too old. Now there's another psychic, and he died. And we how about another psychic? And what if the original psychic grew up to be a new superhero? And what if there was a Batgirl, but then she got crippled, and now she's like a computer genius? And what if he has a son because of that? You just need to keep thinking up ideas so you're not rehashing the same thing. And that's kind of, I'd say, like the big difference between the initial comic book and any adaptation of it, where I don't think we need the Batman family because we don't have, let's just say, a streaming show of 900 episodes where you have to keep coming up with a new idea. It's a different medium, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just the thing that I think the simplicity of Bruce Wayne's struggle with his identity and his mission is at the core of Batman and of that character and everything that comes with it. You know, and that's why honestly I really love the fact that majority of this movie's not fighting supervillains, right? He is fighting the mob. He is fighting against, like, this new, villain, the Phantasm. But it's not like he's fighting against Lex Luthor or he's fighting against, Dark Side. Like those sort of comic book movies that I've seen, or even the animated ones, like it makes it less grounded, which means the stakes aren't really there for me. So like I've seen some really good DC animated movies that have come out, but they never really ring home because of the fact that they're not grounded. The only ones that really worked for me were like the Batman Long Halloween and Year One.
What about the Dark Knight Returns? Did you see?
I saw that one. That one was okay. But I know for me, like the two, Long Halloween was really good. Just because it focused on the mob and all that. And then I absolutely love Batman Year One animated. I own the comic book, but I love that animated one just because, especially the opening scene where he's like, "You've all feasted well," and he like turns out the light and he's like, "No longer," and it's just so good. I'm like, that's the Batman that I like. The dark, very dark. He's gonna beat the fucking piss out of you, and he's also struggling at the same time. That's probably also why I like the Batman.
Yeah, and this whole movie is, I would say, more than anything other than outside of like an action drama suspense. This to me is very much in line with like Shakespearean tragedy.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Anytime that he has a sense of being a human being and being outside of this obsession with being Batman, like a scene where he's with Beaumont trying to get to first base, out on the outskirts of the house, and a bunch of bats fly out from under the ground and scare the hell out of them, being like, "You're not going to escape this mixed blessing of your future." Like
it's his fate, and that's what I'm saying. He can't escape it. He cannot escape it, and everything is a reminder that no matter what, you will become this. And I go back to, he's gonna become this because he's already been that. That he has been that since his parents died. It's just now he's facing the choice of, do I lie to myself and try to be happy? Because that's really what I think. I think if he had stayed with Andrea Beaumont, if he had fought for her and like gone to wherever the hell she was, and like that he, no matter what, would have been lying to himself, and that eventually he would have, either pushed her away. She would have got sick and tired of his shit of going out at night, becoming Batman. Or he just, it just would have eventually just dissolved the whole marriage. But I don't think that he ever had the option, because he's always been Batman. That is who he is, who he's always been. And when he puts on that mask, it is the mask that he's put on for decades of being Bruce Wayne coming off, and we see the real him. And I think that's what shocked Alfred in that one of the best scenes in the whole fucking movie.
It is the best scene.
It is the best scene. And I would say it's the best scene of every Batman movie, is him putting on that costume for the first time and revealing who he really has been since his parents died.
And I think why this works so well for me is that Alfred isn't just afraid of, the Batman costume. I think he realizes that at this point, any hope for a normal life or security or comfort or love is gone. That the guy that I've been looking at for so long hasn't really existed. This mask that I'm seeing right now, that is who he is. I'm looking at the monster that is my former Brucey, and that the power of there's no going back. That is what Alfred's fear is, and that is just a beautiful moment that hasn't really, I think, been touched nearly as well in most Batman adaptations.
No, it honestly is incredibly sad. It's an incredibly sad sequence of events. The flashbacks in general all build on this, right? It takes us from young Bruce Wayne to having some hope that he might not go down this path, and then it falling and crashing and burning to the point where we realize that he's always been fated to become Batman. That this is who he really has been the whole time, and that this is it. That it's incredibly sad, and no other movie has touched it yet. No other movie, no other series has really been able to touch the pure impact and clearly illustrate that that's him. That there is no Bruce Wayne. It is only Batman.
Well, let's talk about a movie that came out 2 years later and how they epically failed on the same idea. Batman Forever. And I always say, bless this movie. There are underlying themes that if they were handled better, could have been good. Someday, I hope Brian and I actually talk about how we would have fixed Batman Forever before it even
we
ever
did do that, John. We talked about it on our Batman Forever episode.
But I'm talking like just clean overhaul.
Oh, you mean like we actually write a script of, hey, this is Batman Forever.
I just
Brian
even
and John take
pre-production,
cleaver to it.
Pre-production, everything. Like I would have said, there's no way we do this movie without Keaton, and if that means we have to overhaul the script, we have to overhaul the script. If we have to get Burton back into some degree, like maybe
George
that's
an episode, John. Maybe that's an episode.
That's a live episode, I think.
That's a live episode right there.
But if you look at Batman Forever, there is an underlying thing of Bruce Wayne's trauma, how he became Batman, why he still is Batman, like what he feels his expectations are. There's a reason that his love interest is a psychologist in the movie. And at one point he decides to close everything down because he doesn't feel the overlying need to be Batman anymore, only to be called into duty as the third act strikes. And he's given an option, save one person or another. And because it's a movie meant for dullards, he just saves them both. Because why give somebody an option they can only do one thing when they could just do both? Because I'm Batman. But
Batman.
But at the end of the movie, he goes, I had to save them both because I am Batman. Essentially say I'm Batman forever. It's like, this is supposed to be like our hurrah moment. But all I can think watching it is, this is fucking sad. A mainstream movie intended for all audiences, a tent pole of Warner Brothers, botches. Again, what a cartoon movie intended for children. Could it be enjoyed by all audiences? Yes. But intended for children did 1,000 times better. How is that?
You want my theory on it?
Yes.
Okay. My theory is that after Batman Returns, Warner Brothers, when it came to live action, had more scrutiny over what the content of a live action Batman movie was going to be. They were more concerned with McDonald's and parents groups than they were about telling a good story. So if they, had to make a Mickey Mouse comic book movie with garish colors over the place and characters that don't make any sense and a paper thin plot, then they're fine with it because it sells Happy Meals. But a animated series that has been proven to be popular right out the gate, yeah, they're like, okay, whatever, do what you want. And maybe that's because of the writing. Maybe that's because of the fact that it just out of the gate was doing fine. You got to keep in mind, Batman Forever is coming off the heels of Batman Returns. And Batman Returns scared Warner Brothers to death.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, it scared McDonald's and action
Yes.
figure companies.
Yes. And an animated movie, we don't care.
Yeah.
Do what you want. We'll put it in theaters. You only got like 10 months, but hey, good luck.
I think that if they had people that cared and had talent, you can still make a Batman Forever movie that is for a wider appeal and still not belittle the audience and mock your fan base that you had from the other two movies. There's a fine line, between Crazy Tough and Phony Brave that they could have wrote and said they went, no, let's just literally just give in to the toy makers and the fast food restaurants and the soft drink people, and let's make a big pile of crap that's just doesn't smell too bad that nobody asks if somebody stepped in something. And I think let's
be honest here, John, though. This is important to point out here. Batman Returns has its toyetic moments too.
Oh, absolutely it does. Yeah. But it was too dark that they went, oh, we didn't sell enough toys.
You mean people didn't want the Bat ski boat? Because I had one.
Oh, I had many toys.
Bat Cave, multiple versions of Batman and the Penguin and the little Penguin figurines. I had all that shit.
I had the gold Batman that had like the rocket pack, and it's like, that was never in the movie, but I got another Batman toy. Whee!
I don't care. I don't care. Yeah. But I guess my point is just that, I think with the exception of the original 1989, they really weren't toyetic. And they've all been toyetic. That's my point. It's just that Returns was toyetic, but it scared away. It scared away McDonald's. And it scared parents groups. And it got headlines because people were going on, the local talk show and saying like, I thought it was too scary. That, by the way, that kid who said that, full of shit.
I've done tons of research to reach out to him in a very respectful manner. I want to ask him now.
In a respectful manner, John?
Well, I don't want to like shit on the kid, be like, you're a little dork. But no, I just want to see what he thinks as an adult and ask him about that whole interview segment and everything like that. But he is very well guarded. I'll say that. I know my way around the interwebs, and I can't find anything on this little feller.
Okay. Well, yeah. I'm just saying that I think that his mom and dad told him to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Allegedly. That's my opinion, that I think his mom and dad said, hey, say that you were scared of Batman Returns.
I was 7 years old, and nothing bothered me. I was more of, wow, look at all these cool visual images, but nothing bothered me. And all the sexual innuendo stuff that adults remember, I was 7. I didn't get any of it. I didn't get the ointment jokes. I didn't get any of that stuff. It went over my head.
All that went over my head. All that went over my head until I was older, and that was like, oh yeah, ointment. Like Penguin thinks
The
he's gonna
Penguin's
get
a
some.
pervert.
Oh yeah, Penguin's total pervert.
Yeah,
total pervert. Now getting back to Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, one thing that we have yet to touch on that I think is important to bring up is the role of the soundtrack in this fucking movie. Some of the best orchestral music in a Batman movie in this film.
I can't remember her name too, but
Shirley Walker.
Shirley Walker, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bless her heart. Like, what an unfortunate position to be put in where it's like, we want you to create music for this new Batman television show. Like, oh, great. I can have complete carte blanche to do whatever I want. Like, no. You have to make it sound like Tim Burton, but don't make it be Tim Burton. Well, I mean, I'm talking about the director, but like, you have to make it sound like Danny Elfman's score, but it has to be brand new. It's like, wow, thanks for the handcuffs, guys. But yeah, what she brings to this, and Brian, I don't know if you know this. Here's a fun trivia fact about the opening of the movie. The orchestra, where it sounds like they're speaking Latin, they are mentioning everybody involved on the music team's names in reverse.
Brilliant. I wouldn't have known that. I thought they were speaking Latin, but it's just
Gibberish.
I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
It's a way to honor them. Yeah.
It's a very haunting opening score.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. It gives me goosebumps. When I was watching it for this podcast episode, I was like getting goosebumps every time that theme was coming in. And I was like, man, that's a hell of a score. And I really think that if you put anyone else in the driver's seat of that score, I don't think that the emotional moments of this movie would hit nearly as hard. Now, yes, this is a movie where a lot of the score is like there literally from start to finish. You can love it or hate it. I actually think it works well. Yeah. Maybe that's because it's animated, but I think it works well for this. Yeah. John, your thoughts on it?
I would agree with that. Obviously it has filler like any soundtrack. Like it's so funny to me to listen to, going back to CD days, because I don't really do this on like Spotify or anything in modern times, but I would go and listen to the soundtrack CD, and there would be times where it would be like track 5 and it would be doop, doop, beep, beep, doop, doop, beep, beep. And I'm like, what is this? And I would see it's all like Batman creeps around hallway, and I'm like, oh, I kind of remember this, but not every track's a banger. We need filler music.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that again, she did a wonderful job with an unenviable task of, you need to be like somebody else, but not them. So copy them, but be you.
I think she had done the animated series already, so I think she had a season under her belt before she did this one. So I think it was more like, how can I take what I did and make it grandiose for a full-length movie? And she knocked out of the park with this. The opening alone gets you hooked. And then the scenes that we've talked about in this movie, especially Bruce's first time that he puts on the Batman outfit, that music makes that scene.
Yep.
Like, if you took the music out and made it just atmospheric, it would not ring nearly as strong emotionally as it does with that music in it.
I've done that with my students. I've shown clips where people have re-edited scenes without absolutely necessary music. One YouTube channel that I'll mention, I don't know if it's their exact name, but it's John Williams without John Williams. And the scene of E.T. going on a ship at the end of the at the end of the movie without music is hysterical. Because it's just like, oh God, do we need music here? Yeah. So yeah, the music plays such a vital role. And this, I would say, we called it kind of like a a tragedy, but I would also say that this movie is almost to a degree operatic, and with an opera, you need a great soundtrack.
100%. I think this movie is a Greek tragedy and an opera all rolled into one. But instead of, characters you'd see in either of those, we have, a man who dresses like a bat and a guy in Joker makeup, and a woman in a Phantasm outfit. But I mean, it all still, yeah,
Chucky Soul.
I love how, by the way, and this is completely random, I love how it's assumed that Chucky Saul's dead because he's the first one whose car like bridges between two buildings. We never see his body. We just know he's dead.
It's fair to assume.
We just know he's dead. I'm like, come on, he might have survived. He might have survived.
But he was running super. He didn't buckle up.
Of course not.
Yeah.
His brain smashed all over the windshield.
Ryan, that's the crash system he's taught us when we were kids. Like, you got to buckle up. You
have to buckle up.
Yeah.
If you just buckle up, you'll survive anything. All right. Well, John, final thoughts on Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Is it the best Batman movie out there?
Ooh. So as we talked about before we went on the air, I have such an emotional connection to Batman. I have since I was 3.5 years old, that I don't know if I can give a proper analysis as a critic on what the best Batman movie is, because I have different connections to different points in my life on Batman movies. Like, obviously Batman 89 was what introduced me to it. And then Warner Brothers is like, all right, we got merchandise for that movie, but we're also going to release all our unsold merchandise of the blue and gray Batman. So to me, I was like, oh, this is just the world. Batman is existence. And the Batman 60s TV show is on, and I'm too young to know how stupid it is. So I'm going to watch that too. And I was just obsessed with Batman. And then different points in my life, like 2008, I'm like, oh, The Dark Knight, like, this is such like a gritty new interpretation of it. And then, now that I'm like 74 years old, when the Batman came out, I'm like, oh, like, this is kind of a different gritty interpretation. But I do go back to this one being like, this is one of the greatest interpretations of not just Batman, but the character and his arc and his legacy and his importance. But I think a lot of people dismiss it, not just because it's animated, but because of the piss poor marketing that had going into it, that I think a lot of people either missed it or forgot it. But I do think that this one absolutely lives on my Mount Rushmore of Batman movies, but I don't know if I can ever order those movies, because I don't know if I can get past my nostalgia and history to properly analytically do so.
I respect that. I know for me, I'm in the same boat as you, with regards to my emotional connection to these films. Batman, for me, that was my first real introduction to not just the character of Batman, but just what film can do. First time I saw 1989 Batman, that was like I hate to say it, it's like a religious experience. That's what I would call it. Maybe it was because I was at the time like 4 years old, but seeing that movie really was just like, oh, this is a movie this is it wakens something inside of you and connects with you inside of you, where like before that, it's Muppet Babies and The Little Mermaid and everything else. Like, none of it matters anymore. And that's like, for me, it's like the minute I saw Tim Burton's Batman, I was like, not only is this, I want to find movies like this, but I now have a connection with this character and only want that character. So I'm in the same boat as you, as like, in different moments of my life, certain iterations of Batman have connected with me because it's a part of my personality. But where I say that this one I think really rises above the rest is its point of making Batman the central focus of this film. Not saying there's anything wrong with putting focus on the Joker, putting focus on the Riddler, putting focus on the other members of his rogues gallery. We've talked in the beginning of the podcast how he's got a really deep roster of rogues that are really good and they're very complex. But none of them ever focus on Batman himself and what it means to be Batman and the tragedy of being Batman and what that means. Whereas Mask of the Phantasm does that out of the gate and it doesn't stop. From beginning to end, I'm seeing the tragedy of Bruce Wayne. And that's what they could have called it, was Batman, the Tragedy of Bruce Wayne. And it would have been fine. And probably would have not sold any tickets being that title. But I mean, I just, in terms of like, if I want a Batman movie to actually focus on Batman, I'm going to say go watch Mask of the Phantasm over the other ones.
Yeah. Follow Bruce Wayne. That ain't going to sell any extra figures, Brian.
I'm sure it will.
We got to move plastic.
We got to move plastic. Oh, shit. This has been, I mean, John, I always love talking Batman with you. It's like one of my favorite things. That and Star Wars. But yeah, Batman especially. Like when you can get John and I on Batman and we'll talk your ear off.
That was one of the first things we connected with. And Gresco's like, you love Batman? Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We just become best friends? Yeah.
We just became best friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Lane was just like, oh, fucking hell. But cool. So with that said, John, where can they find you at on the internets?
At Chucky Sauls. R.I.P. No.
You're not gonna let that one go, are you?
Chucky Sauls.
Chucky Sauls.
There's something about it. Like, I feel like Dave Letterman back in the 90s, like, hey, you get any game? You know, just like, there's something about the ring of Chucky Sauls. No, you can find me over at Instagram, Facebook. And if you like Batman content, ooh, don't you know, I'm just about finishing up a very deep dive script on whether or not Batman Returns is anti-Semitic, or if there's accidental undertones of it, or if there's none at all. I'm doing a deep dive check-in on that. It's fascinating going down that rabbit hole of reading scholars reports, reviewers reports, seeing interviews from the art director and set designer and things like that, just to explore something that, like, when I first heard it, I was like, what? But then when I learned about it, I'm like, maybe. But so I'll be exploring that. So if you want some extra Batman content, I got to check in on Batman Returns coming your way very soon.
Nice. Well, of course, if you have loved this podcast, please do me a favor and share it. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your favorite Batman fan. Seriously, just like, text this to them. Outside of that, you can, of course, follow us on all of the podcast platforms. Just go to cinemapsychoshow.com/follow. And of course, if you are watching us here on YouTube, do me a favor. It's really important. Just hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, hit the notification, hit the like, do all of those things, because that stuff really helps us out. It helps get our podcast out to more people on YouTube, helps us out. On top of that, if you have not done already so, please go ahead and subscribe to our weekly newsletter. Okay, so you're getting an episode of the podcast delivered directly to you through email, and on top of that, you're going to get a bonus episode. I don't know what the hell John and I are going to talk about for this week's bonus episode. John, do you know what we're going to talk about? Blah. Might just talk about blah whole time. I don't know. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter. The link for it is in the description of this episode. Subscribe to it. You'll get a weekly newsletter delivered to you. Each Friday is going to have this episode. It's also going to have a bonus episode that's only on the newsletter. I've really thought about like, okay, should I put this out to everyone else? I'm not. I am keeping this only on the newsletter. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of concerned because I've only seen a couple people like who've gone and watched it. And there's some really funny stuff in there and some good stuff about it, especially like the Penguin series. We did that. It was our first one. And then we talked about Thanksgiving stuff. So subscribe to the newsletter so you get the bonus episodes and you'll get your episodes delivered directly to you. And with that said, we will see you next time.
Murray Chrysler.